Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak with you. I apologise that I'm not there in person. Unfortunately, COVID is making the travel restrictions a little bit difficult. I would have much preferred to have been there in person to make this a little bit more interactive. So hopefully I'll be there next year and we can pick up. But likewise, if there's any questions afterwards, please feel free to reach out to me. I wanted to talk today about Ledger and building and securing a community. My name is Matt Johnson, and I will just make sure that that has moved on the slide. Perfect. I'm Matt Johnson. As you can hear from my accent, I'm actually Australian. I joined Ledger back in January of this year, so still relatively new to the organisation. I started my career off working with the Australian Federal Police. I moved to the UK more than 20 years ago, and I've been focusing on information security and cyber security for more than 20 years now. The last couple of roles that may be of interest was I was the Group Chief Security Officer for Ingenico, and I ran cyber security, information security for Visa Europe for more than 8 years. Now, what I wanted to touch on today was I wanted to talk briefly through who and what is Ledger. Don't worry, it's not going to be a sales pitch, but I know that there will be some people in the room who are probably very aware of Ledger, the products and services, but other people may not be aware of all of those. So just want to bring everybody about that. I'll talk about those business areas and the security and privacy at the core of what Ledger does. I then wanted to raise how it is we go about establishing that trust and building the security within a crypto organization. So here I want to focus a little bit on the effort and work that Ledger goes through to ensure independent certification and verification of its products and tool sets. I'm going to talk through one of the security approval schemes, certification schemes that we go through. So I won't be going through all of them, but I'll be touching on one. Then I'd like to talk briefly about how we contribute to the wider community, what else it is that Ledger is trying to do to help protect us all and keep us safe, and give a couple of examples of some of the scams and takedowns that we've been working on. And then finally, I'll end with a very short call to action, and hopefully that's okay for everybody as well. So who and what is Ledger? So Ledger has 3 primary lines of business. So we've got our B2B, so business to business, our B2C, so the business to consumer, and what we refer to as our IoT origin. So our B2B business, so Ledger Enterprise Services, its main product is we refer to as the Ledger Vault. And this is a self-custody service for our enterprise clients who want to ensure the protection of their digital assets. And over the top of that, we place an overlay of immutable governance rules. So what this means is for large enterprise organizations, you can set up rule sets where you require a minimum quorum of 2 or perhaps 3 people, or even 4. You can define that rules, who are required to sign a transaction before that will be approved and authorized. It means you don't have one person sitting in a treasury department with access to potentially, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or billions indeed, with one person being able to make those transactions or transfers. It's also important to note that the master seed is held by that organisation only. This is not something that Ledger has access to, sees, controls. It is purely down to the organisation to make sure that they, like all of our other products with self-custody, are responsible for protecting and maintaining that. It also means that we can't inadvertently delete the master seed and thereby lose access to funds. The organisations are responsible for that. The B2C business, so that's our consumer wallets, and that's probably where most of you in the room would be familiar with us today, our Nano X, Nano S products, and along with our accompanying Ledger Live and Nano applications. So that's the hardware wallet providing self-custody and sort of an unparalleled level of security, the only still independently verified security product on the market for a hardware wallet. And I will talk through that certification process, as I mentioned earlier. And then we've got IoT, so the the Internet of Things. So this is our origin business, and this is using the same technology, but applying it to multiple different things, not just always the crypto sphere, crypto ecosystem. So if you think here, how do we actually confirm that electricity is being generated using green methods? This will allow us to actually tag that energy generation, and then when I go and buy, I can actually show the traceability of the source of that energy that I'm actually buying. So through, once again, through Ledger Technologies. So how do we go about doing this? So the secret sauce for Ledger, we've got sort of three different areas that I'll touch on. So first of all is our donjon. So we've got a world-class security team. So we've got a number of uniquely qualified individuals, many of whom are leaders in their respective fields, regularly publish materials. These materials could be anything ranging from vulnerability notifications or contributions to new industry specifications or patent applications. You use certified hardware devices. I've mentioned that a couple of times now, what I'm going to talk about next. So the only company to have hardware devices independently certified, and it's all layered over the top of our own Bitcoin Open Ledger operating system, or BOLOS. So all developed in-house for us. Okay, so who and what can actually be certified? We're able to actually certify against people, information and technology systems, products and services, and then there are the organisations that are in charge of that evaluation. So we certify a number of people within our organisation to ensure that they achieve the necessary skill sets, have the right certifications. We then go externally. We have independent auditors coming in and validate our technology systems, and so these can range anything from 27001 through to SOC 2 Type 2, or indeed we've just been released our SOC 3 report. Then our products and services, we build these over the top a number of different security certification schemes. So this ranges from the use of things like common criteria. So the secure element that's used in our hardware wallet is independently certified using common criteria, and that's to EAL 5+ level. So that actually anticipates attacks with an attacker having physical access to the device itself. We've got the CSPN, so that's the French-specific certification that we use for the Nano S and Nano X, and then we've also got other industry or other globally recognised standards, for example, the FIPS, Federal Information Processing Standards, and the HSMs that we use in our Vault product for our enterprise customers. They have been certified to FIPS. So hopefully all of that makes sense, that there are different levels and different layers of schemes. Now, talking about the certification, I wanted to give a very brief overview of one of these. So the CSPN certification scheme, and this is run by ANSI. So this is the French Certification Authority. Depending upon which country, the number of stakeholders can differ slightly, but predominantly it's usually a three-party type model with a certification authority, an independent security laboratory, and then the developer. And in this instance, we're referring to Ledger as the developer. So the certification authority, they're actually responsible for signing off and issuing the certification of a product. They are not paid by either the security laboratory or the developer. There is no commercial relationship. They maintain their independence through the provision of public funding. So it means we can't pay them to go faster. We can't pay them or withhold payment if they don't certify our products. They are completely independent. Alongside them, we've got a security laboratory. Now, the certification authority has to approve which companies can work as a security laboratory. They've got to go through and be recertified every 12 months, and they've got to meet minimum criteria set down by the certifying authority, and that includes things like training standards, the number of staff that are employed, the years of experience, their equipment that's available to them to carry out the tests, and the accuracy of those test results. It may be that some labs are only certified for conducting software certifications. Others have to be specialised to be able to conduct hardware certifications as well. And then there's the developer, which I mentioned, Ledger. So Ledger will actually go and develop its products and will have a commercial relationship with the security laboratory. So walking through how that process works. Ledger has to define which security evaluation scheme. So we look for which are more globally recognised, which has greater appeal to our markets, and which are generally viewed with a greater level of trust. We develop a product, we select the third-party laboratory, prepare the deliverables, and then hand all of that across to the laboratory. So in particular, what I would like to highlight here is when we hand this information across to the laboratory, we are handing over the high-level design, low-level design, our source code, the user manual, samples. We conduct workshops. Because quite often I hear the discussion around open source, in-house proprietary developed. What I want to make clear here is when we're using the independent laboratories for conducting this testing, they actually have full access through to the source code and the ability to view that. It is full white box testing that they conduct. Okay. So the security laboratory then take the product in, they review it, they then work out and define what their penetration test plan is going to be based upon if it's just a hardware product, if they're just doing software work. They'll then do the test and then they recreate what's called the evaluation technical report, the ETR, and they send that direct through to the certification authority. We don't have the ability to respond to that. That goes through to them direct. And then the certification authority may come back and ask additional questions based around that evidence and information that's been provided. And then the certification authority, the roles that they play is they create the evaluation schemes, they accredit the labs. They also do publications and notifications of new attack techniques, new countermeasures, and they then make sure that they continuously update the security certification standards and that actually that they are testing and assessing the independent labs to make sure that they continue to meet those skill sets to be able to do it. Okay, and certify the product. So if all goes well, at the end point here, you will then be issued with a certification report. Now that certification report, you can then go online and go to the ANSI website. You can download that and you can see all of the elements and components that are have actually been assessed. So looking at the architecture of the Nano X here, things I'd like to call out here once again is that we're building on the common criteria certified element on the right-hand side. That's actually the integrated circuit, so the actual chip themselves have been through hardware certification through common criteria. And this is then when we bring it in and we continue to build out our Nano X, the product itself. We have the hardware layer and then the software layer over the top of it. We define the target of evaluation, so that's everything inside the light green box you'll see on the left-hand side and across the bottom. And then overlay the top of that, we've then got the Ledger applications that are then loaded on top over the evaluated product set. So we then specify making sure that the individual components, we have a separate certification for the true random number generation to make sure that that is actually not predictable and not able to be circumvented. Our integrated circuits, so the secure embedding and use of the common criteria certified product set itself, and then all of the Ledger software that layers over the top of that. So that's our BOLOS firmware and the dashboard with it, the secure channel to operate in between the buttons and the secure display, and then being able to access the secure element. So through those, you've got the independent validation and verification. Typically, as a process, this takes us roughly 12 months for each certification cycle to run through. So, it takes us about 3 months to prepare all of the evaluation work to actually hire and get these statements of work done. The evaluation is actually, takes between 6 and 9 months through the security lab itself. They present the report to the certification authority, and then they will actually take generally around about 3 months for them to work through their internal processes before they will actually issue a certification. Sorry, and it's about here I'd normally ask, are there any questions, but unfortunately I can't really get the feedback from the room at the moment. So once again, apologies, I'm not there in person. So I've sort of spoken a lot now around the importance of privacy, security, independence of certification and validation of the ledger products and tool sets against one particular scheme. There are multiple of them, but I'm not going to spend all afternoon talking through all of the different ones. What I'd now like to do is to move into the fourth thing that I wanted to touch on, and this is something that's very near and dear to me, which is around what is it that Ledger does and what can we all do collectively to help the wider community, and how is it that Ledger is involved in investigations and helping clear and clean the ecosystem within which we all work. Most of us are aware, as a community, we are frequently targeted by the scammers. In the old days, before we had the decentralized finance, before we had self-custody, we used to have to go to a bank. Now, if you're as old as I am, you'll remember when the banks were closed on the weekends, so you couldn't actually do any financial transactions at all. You couldn't get money out. Then ATMs came along and, so on and so forth. It's improved a great deal since then, but now we've actually taken on that self-custody. So we've actually taken on the responsibility of the banks. We cannot rely upon them to protect us. We have to protect ourselves. And it means that we've become the common denominator that these scammers are now targeting. So if I move on. So what do we see? And I don't think this will come as a surprise for very many people in the room. What are they after? The main thing that they're after is your seed. So they want the cryptographic seed, or your 24 words that you use for generating your wallet. The main scenarios that we're seeing is the phishing websites asking for the seed in order to access third-party services, an attempt to trick you into restoring your wallet or saying that your wallet has been frozen or blocked, a fake wallet, so smartphone app, fake hardware wallet or browser extensions, or indeed malware. We've seen Zeus is one of the examples out there actually trying to capture the malware, and indeed also if people are doing things like taking photos of it, and then it's being uploaded to the cloud, applications that are then going through photographs to see if there are any that are particularly text heavy. We've also seen scams involving physical hardware. So what we're now getting is people being mailed devices. Now, this doesn't apply just to Ledger. There are other products out there where we're seeing this occur too. But that device will have been physically tampered with. So either it has been pre-configured and a seed has already been generated and will be placed within a scratch card, or indeed it has been tampered with as a USB device with a set of installation instructions with fake applications down on there. Now, with the phishing websites, we're actually seeing more of these being functionally based. So rather than being a ledger specific, that they are able to be used for any one of a number of different wallet providers. So Ledger's gone and we've actually built out our own dedicated internal team to focus on investigations and to focus on scams. In the last couple of months, we've taken down 414 websites that have been associated with scams, fake downloads, fake support websites, and we've actively monitoring, continuing to work with the community where this is where these are reported to us. And this is one of the things I'll touch on with a request for assistance and help later on. Now, we can only share information with law enforcement that we have. So to be really clear here, I've seen a number of comments about a Ledger tracking IPs or keeping IPs, that sort of thing. I can assure you that actually isn't the case. There are instances where a geographical IP check may be made to see which country or region an individual is in for localization. It may be that there is only a particular swap service is available within a geography to pass through to there, but then we do not actually keep that information once the check has been done. I've been contacted directly by the DHS, by the FBI, and I've been asked to hand over IP addresses, which we've not been able to comply with because we don't actually store or retain that information because of the privacy and the nature of which the design of the Ledger products was set out with from the very beginning. We do, however, work with law enforcement, so if we can assist and we've got the permission from individuals involved, we will do. We assist them with training. A number of law enforcement agencies have been in touch, and they I'm not meaning this nastily, but they don't actually have a clue how it all works. So you've got the average policeman all of a sudden has been given a theft or loss of cryptocurrency to investigate, and they struggle to understand just how it is that this value has been moved around, and then how we can actually trace through watching the transactions on the blockchain itself. We're then also trying to level up the security awareness of the community, explain the threats. We're putting out technical studies on a regular basis around vulnerabilities to be concerned of. And going forward, we're looking to further build out a cybersecurity communication community dedicated to cryptocurrency. And I'll be again inviting, some of Ledger's competitors and peers to join and be part of that in a non-partisan way, so that we can all share the common threats and intelligence to allow us to keep our own customers safe. And we'll continue to share that information with our end users and end consumers to make them as safe as we can. So tools that we use for this, we need to have shared confidence that the crypto users, to make sure that we all feel safe and that we can actually continue to encourage other people to come into this ecosystem with us, and that if there are things that go wrong, that we can actually gather sufficient information to hopefully enable us to freeze, recover funds if they have actually been stolen, or indeed to get to the point where law enforcement is able to undertake actions. Most of the people in this room will be very aware that, while incredibly difficult, it isn't impossible, but it does take an awful lot of time and effort. And so we need to be able to tie that back with people, get real life attribution, preferably in a jurisdiction where we can then get law enforcement to be involved. So it is a very long, slow, hard process. I don't want to leave anybody on the notion that actually it's quick and easy, because by the very nature of the technology and the products themselves, they are designed to be very, very privacy centric. I just wanted to take a short moment and talk through an example of a phishing website that we became aware of. So this particular website came to our attention. It was previously branded using Ledger logos, making it look very, very authentic. That has since actually changed, and since it's been taken offline. Before it was done, it was actually then made to look a lot more generic. And we believe the reason for that was because the scammers were using it in a range of phishing scams against multiple wallet providers, and it was then just pointing them all to the same location to try and trick people into entering their backup or their 24 words. So they can actually use it across multiple without having to redo one for all of them. Now, by going through and conducting analysis of this, we found that the WHOIs were very poorly configured. The attacker had actually registered multiple sites and had actually given away individual components of legitimate information. One of the pieces that they'd given away was a phone number. That phone number was then also able to be attributed to a large number of additional websites that had been registered using that same detail. That allowed us to build up a profile or a cluster of identities that were being used. The technical research then allowed us to locate a single specific dedicated server that was being hosted that had 50 phishing websites on it, targeting crypto users. But interestingly as well, it was also being used to host a number of very traditional banking scams. So these were website pages that were purporting to look like a login page for a website, or indeed for if you were applying for a loan. Now, interestingly enough, when we went and we looked at the server, there was zero in the way of security controls on there. The directories were open browsable, so you could just see on there were no controls, no access controls on there, and indeed you're able to see all of the personal information and documentation that victims had uploaded when they thought that they were actually applying for a loan, and they were actually giving away their identities as part of identity theft scams. So all of this has been since taken offline and shared with law enforcement. But the interesting points to note is that the scammers were operating in a jurisdiction with such impunity that they didn't feel that there was any necessity or any need to even bother applying basic levels of security or access control to their own infrastructure in what they're actually pushing out there. So, I think that's one of those continued areas where we need to be mindful, dependent upon the location and the jurisdiction. We may get better traction than in others. Okay. So, bringing it through to the final ends, what is it that we can do? And I want to sort of spread the word and stop the scammers. So there's a few things here and a few calls for assistance, requests for help. But first and foremost, I'm just going to go back with the very common theme. Please, whatever you do, don't share your 24 words under any circumstances. Ledger support. Ledger will never ask for them. We don't need them. We don't want them. If you give those away, you're giving away control for your digital assets. So I just can't specify that enough. And that applies for any one of our other brands that are out there, other wallet providers, because these scammers are out there doing exactly the same thing, not just against us, but other people. If you go to the ledger.com website, right at the very top of the page, there is a link. If you click through to that, we continue to update the latest scams that we become aware of, be it phishing, be it malware, be it downloads, be it people being sent new physical hardware devices. Please go there and refresh yourself on what the latest tricks and scams are that we're seeing, so that you're educated and aware. Likewise, if you fall victim to one of these, and I seriously hope that nobody in this room will or has, but if you do, please do report it to your law enforcement agency, your local law enforcement. Please then also report it to us, and then that way we can make sure that if there's any information that we can get through our investigations team, that we're able to share it back with the right law enforcement agency if we can, if there is anything that's gained from there. And also it means that we're able to update the page and educate and make other people aware and keep the broader community safe if it's a new scam. So other ways that you can help yourself: education. Please use reputable sources to educate yourself. And when you've got those good education sources, make sure you share those with your friends and family. There are too many locations or sources of really bad or really dodgy information out there. There are a number of good locations. Once again, at ledger.com, we've got the School of Block. We've got a whole pile of wealth of resources there for education material. Please go to that. There are other brands available. Crypto Casey, she does great podcasts, good information. So do please go and have a look at those. Make sure you educate yourself and others. Another word of warning: don't share your 24 words. I think that's about the fourth time I've said that during this presentation now, but I'm going to say it a couple more times before we finish. If you have information pertinent through research relating to any of the scammers, there is the ability to send that information to Ledger. We've created a specific mail address for that, and we actually have a bounty program that is running. So once again, if you go to the ledger.com/bounty page, you'll be able to find the details about that. If you have information that actually leads to, the identification and successful actions by law enforcement, bounties are in some instances payable, and the address for that is bounty-phishing@ledger.fr. So you'll be able to send any information into that. Next piece that I'd ask for is please don't share your 24 words with anyone. That's going to be the last time I actually mention that during this conversation. And I'm also calling out to any other partners or members of the community who would wish to be involved in broader information intel sharing to get in touch, because we'd like to create a safe community and a safe haven for us to be able to share this valuable information and keep ourselves, keep Ledger customers, but to keep the broader ecosystem and community safe. Now is where I would actually go through to I'll go through to Q&A, but unfortunately we don't really have the ability to do that. So I would just like to take this moment to say thank you one and all for your time and attention and giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I know that I've rattled through a lot at a very high level, and once again, apologies that I can't be there in person. I look forward to getting out to the next conference and being able to see you there and do a much more interactive take on Q&A. But hopefully I've left you with a bit better understanding of the actions and activities that Ledger undertakes to ensure that the security, privacy and trust, both of its products, its individuals and its services, as well as what we are doing to help keep the community safe, and what you can all do to help not only keep yourself safe but contribute to the wider community. Thank you one and all, and look forward to speaking and meeting with you in person soon. Many thanks. Stay safe. Okay. Okay, so really, really good question this, and it's one that I get asked quite frequently. And I would actually say this depends upon your own assessment of risk. If you're if you're protecting a relatively small sum of crypto, then I would say keeping it in one location is fine. Other people would disagree with that. If you are holding vast sums, I would highly recommend that it is split at least across 2, if not 3 sheets. So you've got the way of doing the 3 separation where you need at least 2 of the component parts to be able to rebuild. I would look at something like the physical protection around crypto steel, so that if there is a house fire, the passphrase isn't going to be destroyed by the fire. And indeed, storing those across multiple safe locations. So once again, remembering what we're using that passphrase for is to protect all of our assets. So that's where we have become the bank. We don't rely upon them anymore. It's down to us, and it is our responsibility to keep that safe. So if you're holding, good or substantial sums, I would recommend splitting at least 2, if not 3 components, needing 2 to recompile, and use of things like a crypto steel or similar to be able to protect against things like a house fire, and have those stored in different locations. Also remember, escrow requirements as well. So what happens if you do have a vast sum and you should unfortunately die? Are your family able to use part of that estate and benefit from your shrewd investments, or will that be lost forever? Thank you. Sure. So basically, it is installed and it acts as a keylogger. So it is actually capturing keylogs when you're going in and either doing an initialization or a restoration. So there are different variants of it, but it's got to capture it at that time. Thank you. Sure. Yeah, of course. So once again, I think it's a really good question, and I think this comes back to one of my favourite topics, and it comes against assessing that level of risk. My aim is that we have a community that's safe and secure, that everybody can easily do all of this and manage it themselves. So we don't need that, but by that same token, I think it's a great way of getting others involved and being able to provide that for them. So once again, I would say be mindful, be wary of the pros and cons with it, but certainly something that I think does have value in certain instances. Yeah. Okay, and it's another really good question, and I believe there's been a couple of presentations about some of the upcoming future releases and features for the Ledger product sets. So some of the things that have been very much discussed is things like whitelisting, so that we can actually put a whitelisted address book in there, so that people will know that they're only sending it to that they can't be tricked into sending it to the wrong address, and also being able to put in transaction limits as well. So those are definite functions and features that we've been looking for. If we go to the Ledger Vault product, so this is our B2B, so the enterprise service, around the governance engine that we have there, we actually have the ability to do whitelisting already, and actually transactional level, so you can actually specify limits that can go to either to an address or needs to be signed by multiple people. So looking at taking sort of some of that, and that will be rolled over on top of the consumer products as well. Yes, but it will be, but it's one of those things that the other question we keep on getting asked is when are we going to do this coin integration or that coin integration? So it's striking the balance on the release and keeping up with the speed of the coin integration, and making sure that that is all maintained correctly and appropriately, so we don't have branching and things falling off. At the same time, also looking at the additional functionality that we can introduce in there to make it an easier and smoother, seamless experience for everyone. Thank you very much, and thanks everyone. One and all, really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you soon. Au revoir. Bye bye.